We feel their absence at every familiar turn of the season was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family.
Could the crown be on the edge of another crisis? Reports suggest a private family meeting turned explosive when King Charles allegedly took away Camilla's royal title. The palace may never be the same again. Keep watching to uncover the drama, and hit that subscribe button for more updates. The room was supposed to feel safe, but it didn't. Only a handful of the most senior royals had been invited, and the promise was simple: a quiet evening of reflection, a chance to show unity in uncertain times. But anyone who stepped through those doors felt it instantly. The tension was too heavy, the silence too sharp. It was as if everyone carried the same thought: something life-changing was about to happen. At the head of the room sat King Charles. His shoulders drooped with age, but his eyes cut through the space with surprising strength. They were steady, unflinching, and gave no hint of the weakness that sometimes showed in his body. He didn't speak at first. He simply sat there, commanding the room in a way no words could. Then came Camilla. She walked in with her usual poise, her confidence almost shining. To her, this gathering was another step in her growing influence, a quiet celebration of her position as queen consort. A faint smile lingered on her lips, as if she expected applause, or at least affirmation. She had no idea what awaited her. William and Catherine entered next, their steps in perfect rhythm. They didn't look at Camilla, not a smile, not a nod. Their silence was louder than any words. Their eyes moved only between Charles and each other, as if sharing a language no one else could hear. Princess Anne was already seated, close to her brother, calm, still, unreadable. But those who knew her best understood. Anne's stillness always meant certainty. She wasn't confused about what was coming. She had already seen the writing on the wall. The air was thick, every sound magnified, every breath stretched too long. And then Charles cleared his throat. It was such a small sound, yet it cut through the silence like thunder. Every head turned instantly. Camilla's smile faltered. William's jaw tightened. Catherine lowered her eyes, but the corner of her mouth lifted ever so slightly. Anne's gaze locked on Charles, daring him to follow through. And then came the words no one expected to hear. With a voice both trembling and firm, Charles announced that Camilla would no longer hold the royal title she carried into that room. The silence was deafening. It wasn't peaceful, it was crushing. It was the kind of silence filled with unspoken screams, disbelief, and shock. Camilla's hand grabbed the table as if anchoring herself. William's eyes flashed with both surprise and inevitability, as though he had always known this moment would come. For Charles, the frailty of his body didn't matter anymore. His authority filled the room. His decision wasn't up for debate. The crown's future was being rewritten before their eyes. But this wasn't something that happened overnight. This moment was years in the making, the result of cracks that had been spreading slowly, hidden beneath polished appearances. From the outside, Charles and Camilla seemed united. Inside the palace, though, there was always unease. Those close to the king noticed his patience thinning. Every disagreement chipped away at him. Soon after Charles's coronation, signs of trouble appeared. Small disputes over ceremonies, who stood where, who spoke when, escalated into battles of pride. Charles held on to tradition fiercely, while Camilla pushed to expand her influence, wanting recognition that went beyond her official role. And it didn't stop at ceremonies. Camilla began involving her family more often in royal circles. For her, it may have seemed like blending families, but for Charles, it felt like encroachment, even a threat. Whispers grew louder. Was she building a legacy not for the crown, but for her own bloodline? Behind the scenes, Catherine quietly raised concerns. She warned Charles that Camilla's growing assertiveness would stir public backlash, reopening wounds that Diana's memory had never let heal. William, too, distanced himself, stepping away from her projects, his silence saying more than words ever could. And Anne? She never needed to speak. Her silence was disapproval enough. To her, loyalty to the crown was absolute, and anyone who risked tainting it, no matter who, was a danger. The fractures were multiplying, and Charles knew that if he didn't act, the monarchy itself could split apart. Beyond the palace gates, the public mood was shifting. Camilla's presence once drew polite applause. Now crowds met her appearances with silence. And silence, for a monarchy that lived on ceremony and approval, was more dangerous than protest. The media sharpened their focus. Stories began circling about Camilla's family, their business ties, their influence creeping closer to the heart of royal life. Old connections were dug up, questions raised, headlines painted a portrait of ambition and overreach. The contrast with Catherine became impossible to ignore. Where Camilla looked embattled, Catherine radiated calm. The public saw her as the future, Steady, graceful, modern. The media fanned this comparison relentlessly, setting photo after photo of Catherine's elegance beside images of Camilla under strain. And then came the shadow that never truly left, Princess Diana. Every mention of Diana brought compassion and admiration, while Camilla's image seemed to sink further under its weight. To the public, Diana's story symbolized devotion and sacrifice. Camilla, in comparison, carried baggage that could never quite be erased. As the press circled and the people turned colder, Charles realized that the monarchy's survival could no longer rest in appearances. Something deeper was threatening the crown from within. It started with whispers, unfamiliar names appearing in private meetings, outsiders suddenly finding influence where they didn't belong. The king's trusted circle began to notice, and soon Charles saw it too. The most chilling discovery was a draft speech. It was never delivered, but its very existence was alarming. It described a future where Camilla's family held roles and recognition far beyond what tradition allowed. It wasn't just ambition, it was rewriting the monarchy's story. Worse still, documents surfaced with Charles's name attached, signatures suggesting his approval when he had given none. To him, this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a betrayal, calculated and dangerous. It was Princess Anne who placed the evidence before him. With blunt certainty, she presented testimonies, documents, and whispers from staff. Her message was clear. Camilla had crossed a line, and the monarchy's future was at stake. Conversations with William became heavier. Father and son debated, sometimes fiercely, but William pressed the truth. The crown couldn't survive if these actions continued unchecked. Together, they came to the same conclusion. Silence wouldn't save them. Only a decisive act could. And so the meeting was called. Charles sat with trembling hands, holding the royal document sealed with the crest of centuries of power. Everyone watched as he steadied himself. For a brief second, Camilla smiled, confident the evening would affirm her role. But that smile vanished the moment Charles spoke. Her title was gone. Just like that. William remained stone-faced, though the tension in his jaw betrayed the storm inside. Catherine sat serene, her calm presence only amplifying the chaos swirling around the table. Anne gave the faintest of nods, a silent confirmation that Charles had done what was necessary. But Camilla wasn't silent. Her voice cracked with disbelief as she accused Charles of humiliation, of tearing apart their partnership. Her words echoed in the room, sharp with emotion. Charles, however, responded with finality. His decision wasn't up for debate. But just when it seemed over, Camilla's next words would turn the night into something far more dangerous. Through tears and fury, she declared she knew too much to be dismissed quietly. Decades of conversations, letters, and private words had passed through her hands, secrets no one else held, and if pushed aside, she hinted she could reveal them. The implications sent chills through the room. This wasn't just a quarrel. It was a threat to the entire institution. Every royal at the table understood, if even fragments of what she claimed made it out, the crown could suffer damage beyond repair. Charles stayed outwardly composed, but his eyes betrayed the shock. William's stare hardened. Catherine's calm grew sharper. Anne's face turned to iron. No one interrupted, because every word Camilla spoke raised the stakes higher. The monarchy had always survived in secrecy, and now those secrets were being held up as weapons. As Camilla stormed out, one thing was clear. The confrontation hadn't ended, it had only begun. The moment the doors closed, panic spread. Phones rang, advisors gathered in whispers. The king's decision was final, but how the world would react was another storm entirely. Should they deny it? Spin it as protocol? Confirm it outright? Each choice carried massive risks. A denial would collapse the moment Camilla spoke. Spinning it would insult public intelligence. Confirmation would be unprecedented. And looming above all was Camilla's threat. The possibility of letters, conversations, documents reaching the press was no longer unthinkable. It was real. In the midst of the chaos, William's voice cut through. Calm, clear, confident. He insisted the narrative must shift, portraying Charles's act not as division but as protection. Protection for the monarchy's future, for Catherine's role, for stability. Catherine, too, became the palace's strongest symbol. Her calm public appearance reassured the nation, every photograph showing grace where Camilla's downfall had shown turmoil. Anne, behind the scenes, quietly reinforced Charles's resolve, reminding him that leadership sometimes demanded painful choices. Still, everyone knew, no matter how carefully they managed the story, the crown would never look the same again. In a single evening, Camilla's circle dissolved, her influence erased, the balance of power shifted decisively. William's strategy had been subtle but effective. He never pushed his father too hard, But at the right moments, he planted doubts, reminded Charles of public opinion, and slowly guided him toward the decision. It wasn't manipulation, it was patience and timing. Catherine's role was quieter, but no less powerful. She built loyalty among staff, nurtured alliances, and presented an image of stability the public adored. She didn't speak against Camilla openly. She didn't need to. Her presence did the work for her. And Anne, steadfast as always, added her silent weight. She didn't praise, but she didn't defend Camilla either. That silence was support enough. When Charles made his decision, the public didn't see it as punishment. They saw it as safeguarding the future. They saw William and Catherine as the rightful heirs, the steady hands ready to lead when the time came. The crown had shifted, and everyone felt it. The monarchy had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Camilla's title was gone, her influence broken, but her threat remained. Did she truly hold letters and secrets that could tear the palace walls open? Or was it a bluff born from anger? That uncertainty hung like a shadow. For Charles, the decision was devastating, but in his mind, it was necessary. Better to endure personal loss than risk the institution collapsing from within. For William and Catherine, it was victory through patience. Without shouting, without demanding, they had positioned themselves as the natural future. For Anne, it was confirmation that her brother had finally acted in defense of tradition, even at great cost. And for Camilla, it was war. The monarchy was no longer defined by unity. It was defined by fracture. And what came next would determine whether it could survive. So here's the question. Was Charles's bold decision truly about protecting the monarchy? Or has he opened the door to an even bigger storm? And if Camilla follows through on her threat, how much could she really reveal? What do you think? Could this be the most dangerous moment for the crown in decades? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And if you're ready to dive deeper, make sure to check out our next video exploring how William and Catherine's influence is reshaping the future of the monarchy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we uncover the stories shaking the royal world.